Salutations, fellow vidiots. Welcome back to yet another episode. That full moon madness, baby. It has been quite a while. We're joined by fellow schlockaholics here, Dominic and Cody. Say hey, boys.
Going on.
And we are going to be presenting tonight to you the Full Moon 101 special. This is a video that I attempted to do a long time ago. And I'm kind of glad that it sort of went off the rails. A lot of technical difficulties in that first attempt. I had a different setup at the time. And the list of movies that I picked for that first attempt was far less nuanced than the list of movies that we're going to be presenting to you fine folks tonight. It was basically what we will be representing at some point in the Full Moon Essentials stream that we're going to be doing probably several weeks from now. Or like next weekend. I don't know. Depends on when the bug strikes me. But you know, the purpose of this essentially is to give any newcomers to the Full Moon Library a proper foundation of films that represents each era of Full Moon and all the different types of movies that Full Moon put out over the years. But not only is it there to do that, it's also there to give them a proper starting point with those various avenues in the library so that they're not set up for disappointment. They're not just seeing all the top tier best stuff first. It gives them a little taste so that they can explore further and discover the gems that we'll talk about in the Full Moon Essentials video, kind of on their own, or after we tell them about them in that stream. So hopefully we've got some deeper cuts here tonight that maybe these boys haven't seen. I know several of these were ones that I didn't grow up watching or anything like that. It was stuff that I discovered later on down the road once I started seriously collecting Full Moon. And, you know, I think that you guys are going to get a kick out of it. Hey, girl, what's up? I love it. And then we also got Toku Nerd in the house. What's up, man? Hey. And more. So maybe there's more than one person there. I don't know what the and more. So thanks for watching, guys. We got quite a list for you, and we're going to dive into it right now with our first film. As we present each film, we are going to present you guys with the trailers for them so you can get a little taste of that flavor. And then we're just going to chop it up after each trailer, kind of share our thoughts on it, and all that good stuff. Explain why I chose them. And, you know, whether or not these guys get a kick out of them. So let's get this going. We got our first trailer here. I'm going to fire that bad boy up.
Project Shadow Zone, Captain Hickok.
In the dark of a lifeless sleep.
By taking subjects beyond normal levels of dream state sleep,
a research team
we discovered that a parallel dimension exists.
Is exploring the world beyond dreams.
There's something I think you should see.
What is it?
I don't know.
Someone's trying to gain entry to the project.
It's a shadowy realm where science ends.
This is very dangerous.
It's coming out of the darkness.
Do something!
I can't. Something's overriding the program.
Yeah. Where your darkest fears are given life.
It can assume the physical nature of human thought.
Become any size, any shape it wants.
It became what Kidwell was looking for.
Where the distance between sleep and death
There's no way out.
Is just a nightmare away. Louise Fletcher, James Hong, Sean Weatherly, Shadow Zone.
All right, so there you have it, guys. Shadow Zone, our first selection for the night. This is a great example of sort of the straightforward sci-fi horror stuff that Full Moon would do sometimes. You got examples from like the urban classics sort of era with Creepazoids. You got later examples with Crash and Burn. I think that this is a good middle ground to start with. It's got some recognizable people in there that you probably, will be familiar with from other movies. You got old fucking David Lopan from Big Trouble in Little China in there. Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Miguel Nunez was in there too. Those damn fajitas or whatever. Enchiladas, yeah. Thankfully, no enchiladas to pulverize this bunghole in this movie.
It wasn't in the budget.
Yeah, they couldn't afford it. Shadow Zone's always kind of reminded me of like a bit darker version of something like, I guess, Dreamscape, if you guys remember that movie. It's just, standard. They've opened a dimension into like dreams and your fears and all that kind of stuff. That movie Sphere kind of played off of that gimmick a little bit too, where it brought like whatever their worst fear was to life. This is Full Moon basically doing that like a decade before whoever did Sphere did that. Old Dustin Hoffman in there. I saw that one in the theater actually. I just like it a lot, man. I think it's like a good starting point for the straightforward sci-fi horror stuff that Full Moon would do, and probably one of their better, lesser known gems, I think. This is not one that I rented as a kid or anything. I feel like I do remember seeing like the cover art before, but I don't know if that was later on in tape groups. So you guys familiar with Shadow Zone? You ever see that bad boy?
Yep.
Oh,
Nice. So there's the first new one for you there, Dominic. Definitely one to throw on the list. It's available on, obviously Full Moon streaming and Tubi, probably Amazon Prime as well. Full Moon, they dabbled in very much their own brand of stuff most of the time, but it was always neat when they would do just a straightforward horror movie that kind of went out of the, realm of like little shit that kills stuff or horror comedies or like fantastical things. Shadow Zone's just pretty much straightforward horror, sci-fi horror. Obviously they're trying to, put it in the same sort of headspace as Alien and The Thing with the tagline there. It is really not too much. I guess it has some similarities to The Thing. Some cool exploding heads in that bitch. Some decent creature design. I'm sure you guys saw in the trailer there. And it's just overall a really good movie, man. It's one that I think a lot of people that aren't Full Moon fans would like as well. So if you're a newcomer to it, this is a good place to start because it's Full Moon enough that, you're going to recognize certain themes from it in later movies or earlier movies that they've done. But it's not so Full Moon that it's like going to be culture shock or anything going into it. And also, you'll be happy to know, Dom, it is one of those single location horror films that we like so much. There's just something claustrophobic about a movie that traps a bunch of characters in one place and just makes them fight for their lives. Let's see if we got any comments here on that. Stop invading me. It's an inside joke, but I love you too, man. So yeah, Shadow Zone, put it on the list. You guys see?
Like, how would that not want you to? How would that not want you to want to watch it? And it doesn't really like it gives you a good B movie vibe, direct to video kind of stuff. That if you're into that stuff, like there's no reason you wouldn't want to give that one a shot for sure.
No, not at all. Yeah, it's got all the things that we like about this kind of shit. Familiar faces, crazy creatures. There's some naked chicks in there and a really extended dong shot that I wish that they'd left out. You can show a dude in a cryo tube without doing a slow pan around his wiener. Yeah, exactly. I think he was uncut, actually, if you know what I mean. But
Waka waka.
This definitely would have been a rental classic for me as a kid if I had, ventured out and rented it at the video store. I don't know how it would have escaped me if it was at our local video store back in the day. Jody actually grew up in our local video store, so if you remember seeing Shadow Zone in there, let me know. I mean, it just seems like one that I wouldn't have overlooked if I'd seen it on the shelf. So maybe they didn't pick it up. Lots of video stores after a certain point, I feel like we're maybe guilty of just grabbing the flagship Full Moon titles and not as much stuff from their back catalog. So you'd see all the Puppet Masters and the Trancers in there, maybe Robot Wars, things like that, but Subspecies, obviously. But Shadow Zone, some of those deeper cuts weren't always on the shelf. So moving into our next selection here, we've got one that a lot of people would argue would fit in very well on the full moon essentials list. You'll get a piece of those later, baby. Don't you worry. This one arguably is an essential full moon film, but it had to go on the list because it's perfect entry level stuff that introduces you to a character that is a pivotal, pivotal player, I should say, in a couple of full moon franchises in a sense. One's a bit smaller and one that full moon is very well known for.
I've been told that smaller isn't really that big of a deal, so I kind of appreciate that.
Yeah, it's all on how you use it, baby.
No eye contact, and I've been told that.
Hey, some people prefer the direct eye contact, prolonged direct eye contact.
No, I mean like when they're saying that smaller doesn't matter. Usually I don't get eye contact when I'm told that.
Like they're saying it just to be nice.
Get the pat on the head. At least you tried.
Yeah, you're not doing too bad. So yeah, here we go.
On the planet Arcturus, he's the toughest cop around.
That's a Kruger blast, most powerful hacker in the universe.
That's right, fat boy.
What do you want, asshole?
Nothing.
You're just gonna walk away?
On the planet Earth, he's 13 inches tall.
Oh, fuck!
That's about the size of it.
Shit! Can we keep it?
Hold me together. I'm going to war. With who? The fucking doll man. Who else?
Are you in the wrong neighborhood?
Urban fucking renewal.
Doll man, 13 inches with an attitude.
Yes.
Yeah, 13 inches ain't nothing to sneeze at either, especially if it's got attitude.
So I've been told.
So Jody says that she cannot remember whether or not Shadow Zone was at the video store because she was watching the porn. And you know what? Full Moon probably had some films in there too. Surrender Cinema, baby. We got Full Moon royalty in the motherfucking house with Jester Mikey right there.
Mr. Mikey.
Oh yeah, man. I got to get caught up on his videos. He's been getting some pretty cool pickups lately. Like I said, Dollman's arguably one that it should be on the essentials list as well, and it probably will get talked about again on there. But it's also great entry-level Full Moon because, in my opinion, it's one of the most rewatchable Full Moon films. So it's going to be one that they can immediately add to their arsenal of sort of comfort flicks that they can revisit whenever they want. It was also directed by the late, great Albert Pyun. Rest in peace. We miss you, man. And that mullet. It's got, obviously Tim Thomerson and Jackie Earle Haley in there. Sadly, we didn't get any more Full Moon appearances from Jackie Earle Haley that I'm aware of, but he did go on to play Rorschach in The Watchmen and Freddy Krueger. Yeah, so notable early appearance of him in films. Might have been one of his first films. But Tim Thomerson is the main attraction in this bitch, okay? If you start out with Dollman and you like the character, you're going to be stoked to know that there's like 5 other movies where he's basically playing the same character, only full size, in the Trancers franchise.
Or also the Dollman going against the demonic toys.
He does, which actually will be coming into play here very soon.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, but Tim Thomerson is just a fucking legend. The guy's been in a ton of movies in and outside of Full Moon. And, I kind of did the reverse order with it, where I watched this like later in life. I think I rented it once or twice as a kid, but I was renting the Trancers movies a lot more often. So then if you start with the Trancers movies and you get all 5 of those in you, and then you go back to Dollman, it's like you're kind of bummed that there's only really this movie and then the Versus film with him playing this character. But if you do it in this order and you start with this guy, I figure it's going to be a lot more satisfying jumping into the bulk of the Trancers movies after the fact. And like I said, Dollman is just endlessly rewatchable. It's got a great soundtrack, great effects, solid comedy, some quality violence, some decent blood and guts in there. I really like the theme of it. You know, I'm a big fan of like Stranger in a Strange Land kind of stories where people are, you know, sort of like Encino Man or anything like that. Starman. Lots of movies were with man in the title, and also, you know, just movies where somebody is like transported to a weird planet or woke up in the wrong time or things like that. There's just something interesting about those stories that's always really appealed to me. And I think Doll Man is, you know, a solid entry into that sort of subgenre of film.
I can't believe I haven't upgraded that one.
Yeah, it really needs to be upgraded in my collection as well. I still just have it on DVD. What we saw there was the beautiful, magnificent Blu-ray trailer. So it clearly looks real good on Blu-ray.
I got the Kangaroo release.
Yeah, those weren't too bad. Their transfer set sucked, but that's just more of a quality control issue on the
I got
package.
Burst Demonic Toys on Blu-ray, but I, for some reason, haven't upgraded Dollman yet.
Yeah, I was considering pulling the trigger on the Blu-ray in the last sale, but I kind of, you know, spent my funds on some other upgrades that I guess I needed at the time.
Right.
But Dollman probably should have been prioritized. Oh, shit. Well, there you go.
It was pushed
Yeah.
further back. That was one of the 12 free Blu-rays I got.
I mean, in a sense, you just upgraded it on camera because you didn't know that you had
it. I'm stupid.
Yeah, that's great, man. You familiar with Dollman, Dominic?
Yeah, I watched the film, Dollman.
What are your thoughts on it? You enjoy it?
Yeah, I enjoy it. I actually like the whole like you know, story of it. You know, when he gets from his I guess it's Earth that he's from, but like
Arcturus, I think it's called.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and
Doesn't he come to Earth?
he goes to our Earth, and he's just smaller. And
yeah, he's it's like there's some like gravitational band around the planet or whatever, and when he's chasing Sprug through it, they like go all seizure mode, and then he ends up fucking flung onto Earth, and it just so happens that like he's a third of our size or a tenth of our size or some shit like that. 18 inches. So yeah, that's like around a tenth of our size, I guess, in a sense, you know, or 1/6 of our size, I guess, because 6 feet is about, you know, the average tall end of humans. Cody obviously represents the other end of the spectrum. Yeah, man. I mean, that whole concept in and of itself is really cool. The idea that his planet is like, you know, he's normal sized on his planet, but on ours, he's small. It kind of makes you wonder if there is like miniature worlds out there where we would be like kaiju sized compared to the people that exist on the planet. And then obviously, you know, in doing that, they had to utilize a lot of technology that was just straight up old school film technology that was used in shit like King Kong and stuff like that back in the day. So it's a good example of Full Moon working on a budget and using like old film techniques, but in like a modern sense at the time to produce something that looked way more expensive than it actually was. One of the things I want so bad, and I have no idea how the fuck they've never done it, is a proper Dollman action figure. And then I would really, really love to have a replica of Dollman shipped.
I was just thinking about that. Like it's about the right height to do a replica, and it'd be, you know, a one of one for sure.
Yep. Because he's 18 inches tall. So that's, yeah, like you said, perfect size.
But we've been talking about them doing anything but Puppet Master for a while, and at least they're finally starting to. So hopefully that'll
keep
the trend
they're
going.
branching out. Now they're doing demonic toys. Huge diversion from the theme.
But also, I mean, it's weird. This is one area that they haven't touched like in a long, like they're not doing the action stuff really anymore. They're not really doing the sci-fi stuff so much anymore. Like it's like one area that they know they had. You would think that Charlie would stick to. This is what works. I'm going to exploit the hell out of it. That's what he does with, you know, a lot of his stuff. But I mean, we haven't seen anything like that in years. And I haven't heard him tease anything like that, or we're going to try and bring this stuff back. It's just weird that they haven't really touched. I know they've done some sci-fi stuff. Like, I mean, you go with Resonator maybe as being a sci-fi movie and stuff like that. But I mean, they haven't really done any kind of sci-fi action adventures in, shoot, at least 20 years, at least.
Right. And I mean, it's, you know, especially with seeing what they clearly are able to pull off with subspecies, it just comes back to what we've been saying for ages on here now, is that if they scaled back the number of projects and just put more money into it, they could, into individual projects, they could easily crank out those sci-fi action epics again. I mean, why we've never gotten like an Old Man Logan style movie with an aged Tim Thomerson playing Dollman again in his later
He's still
years.
alive, right?
Yeah, as far as I know. I don't think he's one of those celebrities, unfortunately, that if he died, we'd get updated anytime soon.
I think we would, but most
yeah, we
people
would. Sure, but yeah, I think they could do something really cool with it, where there's like an aged doll man, where he has to sort of like, you know, take some other detective or kid like that comes through from Arcturus under his wing. Because if it can happen to him and Sprue, it stands to reason that at some point in the future, someone else could get flung onto Earth from his planet. And it would be cool. He is, yeah. If they're going to do this, now's the time. He was already looking pretty rough and Evil Bong during his little cameo in there. So if they're going to get it done, they need to. And I'm pretty sure that Tim would be down to do it if they gave him a script that had like some good thought put into it.
I think even if they didn't do that, I mean, he hit up a lot of when they were doing the road shows. He was a special guest at a lot of those. So, I mean, that was at least 15, almost 20 years ago. So I'm sure you get to that age, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. So
yeah,
I don't see why they wouldn't, or at least do something where he's teaching like the next Jack Death and you can go from there or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer that we didn't get a proper sixth Trancers movie with, you know, Tim Thomerson coming back. I get what they were doing at the time with Part 6, and it's not as bad as some people make it out to be, but man, I need that old Timmy Thomerson in my shit, man. That guy is, in my opinion, kind of the face of Full Moon in a lot of ways, because him and Radu, because all their other iconic characters are like not humans, you know, but fucking Tim Thomerson was in 8 Full Moon movies, and then like really it's more like 10 if you count his appearances and other stuff. So
right,
yeah, I just don't know why he's never been marketed more as the face of the company. Dollman especially is like should be right up there, being pushed as much as Puppet Master or Demonic Toys or any of the other stuff. But I get it,
yeah,
you know.
Especially
good.
Especially since like, you know, Dollman crossed over with Demonic Toys, which is Demonic Toys is one of the biggest like franchises / like, you know, characters in Full Moon, along with Puppet Master in a way. But yeah, Dollman doesn't get as much love as it should, because it is one of the first like few films from Full Moon that really got out there and was a cool concept that was executed perfectly.
Exactly. Really good. Dead perfect. I mean,
and also with Full Moon going back to this, you know, Gigantus thing, why can you not do the opposite right now and roll out another Dollman movie?
Or cross over the two. Dollman could be riding around a big old set of cleavage. I mean, I'm sure Tim would love that. You know, let's make it happen, Charlie. Come on. And if they can't do that, it would be cool to see a Dollman replica, like Cody said, perfect size. It would also be really cool to see a replica of the ship and the Kruger blaster. I would buy all 3 of those things immediately. So something to think about, guys that are running that new toy division. I'm not sure if they ever put out a soundtrack disc for Dollman. I own most of the Full Moon soundtracks. I probably should have checked, but it does have a pretty good soundtrack as well. So it's like one of their 5th movies. Like Dominic said, it's one of the earlier Full Moon films, and it just showed a level of quality that really sort of ushered in the early 90s era of Full Moon in a way where you knew that you could look forward to things like a Demonic Toys, baby. Let's check out the trailer for this guy, and then we're going to talk a little bit about this, because I'm positive we've all seen it and have things to say.
For 66 years, evil has been waiting, watching, wanting for someone to play with its toys.
Gonna have a lot of fun here tonight, friend.
Get back!
It's the toys.
Someone's inside the toys. What do you want? Oopsie daisy.
Before the night is through, I'll be born in a human body, flesh and blood.
Demonic toys. Playtime has begun.
God damn, I love how Full Moon like uploads the Blu-ray trailer and it's still like all pixely and stuff. Good job, guys. Yeah, Demonic Toys is the other movie on the list here that you could argue is full of. There he is, the main man. Can't wait to see how that fucking new working Jack Attack Jack in the Box is going to be.
It's gonna be terrible, but you and I are still gonna buy it.
Yeah, we're gonna need it immediately. This is the other movie on my list that you could argue is kind of a cheat. It's not as deep of a cut as some of these other ones. It really is one that we're gonna have to talk about again, or at least mention honorably when we do the essentials list. But it's a good entry level like killer doll movie, killer toy movie for Full Moon. It puts you in there and kind of gives you an idea of really what you can expect from more of the other killer doll, killer toys stuff that they've done. Puppet Master is a bit more straightforward. It's less comedic. It's kind of got its own flavor to them. Whereas Demonic Toys, you know, has the comedy in there. It's got a little bit of the, you know, the raunchiness to it as well. A little bit of blasphemy, satanic elements and cool stuff. You got some David Allen stop motion in there with the little toy soldier guy. So you get some of the flavor that you're going to get in the Puppet Master franchise, but you also get a bit of a familiarity with the stuff that you're going to see from them in the Tiny Terrors stuff that they do later on, like Hideous or, you know, Doll Graveyard, things like that.
Blood
Maybe
Dolls.
exactly more lower budget, you know, killer Tiny Terror stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas Puppet Master, they were obviously throwing in the entire fucking pocketbook on a lot of those movies, and it shows, you know, at least till the sixth one. But you know, it's good to start, you know, with more of a more basic version of that, so that you can watch this and be more blown away by the Puppet Master movies when you see those after the fact. A lot of people, when they do lists like these, they just throw out all the best stuff right away. And like I said, that kind of sets people up for disappointment. Like if you've seen like all the first 6 Puppet Master movies and then you go back and watch Demonic Toys, you're probably still going to have fun, but you're going to be in that mindset of like, oh, but this could be better. They could have put more money into it and did it like they did the Puppet Master stuff. But I think them making Demonic Toys more low budget and campy was, you know, a very conscious decision they made at the time, so that they could do sort of 2 different brands of the same type of movies, if that makes sense. You guys probably have some history with Demonic Toys. Obviously, you're a fan, Cody. Was this a frequent watch for you guys growing up, or what?
Yeah, it was definitely something that I watched like twice in my life. That I enjoyed it. Like I think it has a good rewatchability when it comes to it. I enjoyed it because it reminded me a lot of like a Ghoulies, because of the whole plot of it. It just reminds me like the you know, the master, the fucking the toys are like the Ghoulies. They're like comedic but they're like the followers. They're doing the master's dirty work for them. So yeah, I enjoyed it because it reminds me a lot of Ghoulies. But on its own, like I think people should definitely give it a watch if they haven't seen Ghoulies. I think if they watch this and they end up watching Ghoulies at some point, whether it's Ghoulies 1, 2, whatever, I think they'll even enjoy Ghoulies as well. You know, if you like that type of miniature creature doll killer, you know, miniature creature killers, you know. If you like that type of stuff, then yeah, you're gonna like Demonic Toys for sure.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there, Dominic. I hadn't thought about the fact that it is almost a recreation of the Ghoulies plot. Like there's the whole Satan element and them being summoned to do the bidding of the master kind of a thing. And yeah, so it's not only a good introduction, a good baseline to start with the Tiny Terrors stuff, but it also simultaneously shows you what you can expect from the 90s of Full Moon and is a callback to the 80s with stuff like Ghoulies from the Empire era. So thanks for throwing that out there, man. It's a good. This is why I have you guys around. My brain doesn't fucking think of all these things. What about you, Cody? You got any thoughts on Demonic Toys?
I mean, it's easily my second favorite Full Moon franchise, and it's can kind of go back and forth just because it's had so few sequels compared to Puppet Master. But I mean, I like how the first one, it just has so much just weird random stuff. I mean, it's got the girls in the gas masks riding around the tricycles.
Love it.
And unless I forgot it, it's not in the second one. I'm sure that was good. They couldn't afford the gas mask and the tricycles again.
Or like half the toys, I think. Demonic Toys 2 is fun. And yeah, you also got Dollman versus Demonic Toys. And then more recently, you've got a whole trilogy of Baby Oopsie movies. So much like Dollman with Trancers, this is kind of like an introduction to a larger, sort of adjacent films, a batch of shit that you can go into watching afterwards if you dig it. With Demonic Toys, obviously, it's much more directly related to it, whereas Trancers has nothing to do with Dollman. Though me and my buddy, Chris.
Hey, we made it almost 30 minutes before this happened. That's pretty good.
The suspension is on again. We're back at it.
Yep. Have you seen Demonic Toys 2 or Dollman vs. Demonic Toys, Dominic?
Yeah, I only seen Demonic Toys and Demonic Toys. Well, yeah, Demonic Toys and Demonic Toys versus Dollman. I did enjoy Dollman versus Demonic Toys because it was pretty cool for what it was. But
hell yeah, I'm getting fast at fixing that hotspot, man. That might have been my fastest return.
We made it almost 30 minutes this time. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's doing okay.
Yeah.
But we came up with a pretty good idea for like a Trancers Dollman crossover. And we're pretty certain that if Brick Bardo was holding Dollman in his hand like a gun, and then Dollman was shooting the Kruger blaster, it would still be. I mean, how fucking hilarious would that be, dude? Where he's like using Dollman as a gun, and then Dollman's like shooting the fucking little Kruger blaster.
Yeah,
it'd be super stupid, but I want to see it, man. If any internet artists out there could do a rendition of that for me, I would frame it and hang it on the wall immediately. Sorry, what were you saying, Dominic? It sounded like you were making some points while I was transitioning back into the stream.
Yeah, no, I just mentioned that I seen both Demonic Toys and Dollman versus Demonic Toys. I would say like the crossover was cool, but it just felt like it was just a random crossover. It felt like there were two completely different stories it's like separate movies almost, like with Dollman and Demonic Toys. Like it felt like that movie that could have been that whole Demonic Toys storyline, Demonic Toys 2, the whole Dollman storyline, Dollman 2, because it just felt completely. And when they crossed paths, it was so random. It was just like, okay, we're here, and it's like.
Yeah, let us not forget Bad Channels was also in the mix with that crossover as well. So it's Dollman, Demonic Toys, and Bad Channels crossing over for Dollman versus Demonic Toys. And you could argue, like you said, that all three of those they could have taken the plot from that crossover movie and just fleshed it out more to be individual sequels for all those movies, and it probably would have been better. I think it's also one of Full Moon's shortest movies, because I think it's like right around an hour long, and there's like something like 15 minutes of flashback footage in it from each of the movies. So if you chopped all that out, it's like 45 minutes long. And it's just, it was very rushed and slapped together. It's a cool like oddity, it's a cool novelty that I would throw in like a marathon or something, but it's not one that I return to often to watch on its own, because there's just
by its own. Like I don't think I can watch it by itself. Like like I said, I have to watch it like in like a franchise viewing type of situation.
Because it's not even a full movie. Dollman versus Demonic Toys.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a lot of recycled footage, and even then it's still what, 65, 75 minutes,
I
something
think
like
it's
that.
65 maybe, and then if you chop out the recycled stuff, it's like 45, 50 minutes is
Right.
the actual full movie.
Yeah.
Worth seeing, but I mean, yeah, you can't go wrong with some demonic toys. Good baseline entry into the Tiny Terrors stuff that Full Moon would do, and it crosses over with Doll Man. They crossed over with Puppet Master at some point too, and I do not recommend it. just stay away from it. I'm pretty sure the budget of that thing was cocaine and Corey Feldman. It's just not good, and the design of all of the puppets and the toys stoinks. I absolutely hate that movie. Thankfully, it wasn't done by Full Moon proper. I think, wasn't it Sci-Fi Channel?
Yeah, it was a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, so just fuck that movie. But you're good off. Thankfully they did the Baby Oopsie shit and followed it up. I still with those, and those are pretty quality. I enjoy them quite a bit. It's some of the better stuff that Full Moon's doing right now. I don't really know if any of the other toys from Demonic Toys could support spin-off standalone movies like that. Unfortunately,
Probably
they don't
not.
have enough personality. But I would not kick a Jack Attack standalone out of bed. So,
or if nothing else, have them pop up in the next Baby Oopsie movie.
yes, yeah, and they reference them in there. So there is this idea that we might get at some point a new full-on Demonic Toys movie. Exactly. I reflect his sentiments 100%. Like, please do it. As much as I like the big jiggly fucking bimbo movies, I mean, maybe let's call it a day on those and start saving up to do a good Demonic Toys revival. I mean,
hopefully with the new subspecies, it's a step in the right direction. And for somebody that I've never seen any of the subspecies movies, but the fact that watching that trailer, it looks like they put some money into it. And I hope they don't just make this a one-off where, all right, well, that was, 10 movies budget. We're not going to do that anymore. Hopefully this will be like, hey, maybe if we put a little more money into this, we'll get some more out of it.
Right. And, my theory is that that's what they're thinking about also with Demonic Toys, because think about it. They're doing Blood Rise, and they're also releasing a Bloodstone replica to like sort of coincide with it. And then for whatever reason, they've decided to do the Jack Attack Jack in the Box and the Baby Oopsie replica. So I'm thinking that we're either going to get a Jack Attack movie somewhat in the vein of like Blade Iron Cross, where somebody finds Jack Attack and he becomes like a good doll and is helping them or whatever. Or like Baby Oopsie, it turns into some shit and then eventually they cross over. Or we're just going to get a full-on Demonic Toys movie. So there's a good chance what we're saying here will come to pass. And if it does, you heard it here first, guys. Well, maybe not.
And hopefully it's not like the Dr. Death replica where it comes out, a good 3 years before the movie comes out.
Yeah, that might be the case. That's probably likely. I feel like that's what's going to happen. But yeah, we got another selection up here for you. This one is a bit of a deeper cut. It's a classic to a lot of us that are fans of Full Moon, but it's not one that I think a lot of people would throw out there as one that people need to watch right away. I would disagree with that because it highlights some various themes and styles of movies that Full Moon would be known for. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and check that out right now.
At Dante's Inferno, the ultimate video game has come to life.
This is arcade, and it's all done in virtual reality. It's so real, you'll actually think that you're in the game.
I am arcade. If you want to play games, you picked the wrong machine.
You gotta try this thing.
And all you need to play are 2 quarters and your soul.
I think the game is alive somehow.
If you won't play the game by my rules, then I'll play in your world.
Now, 2 teenagers will play for their lives.
Kiss reality goodbye forever.
And enter an electronic world where virtual reality has become flesh and blood. arcade. Kiss reality goodbye.
Full Moon couldn't upload a proper thing of that. It doesn't belong to Face Mountain. I don't know what your WordPress is about, bro. Like, you don't own the trailer. You don't see me putting a fucking retro cult watermark over the shit. Yeah. It's just a fucking trailer, man. Arcade is great, though. I think it's a great example of Full Moon doing sort of kid-friendly horror, I guess. They did it again with like stuff like Shrunken Heads, where it's like it's definitely got some adult stuff in it, but it's not so adult that you couldn't kick back and watch it with your kids. I mean, it doesn't have any nudity or really gore in it. It's got one F-bomb in the movie, and that's it, and it comes from Ralphie from A Christmas Story, which is just awesome. He gets to say fuck instead of fudge. Life-changing moment for me. But also it introduces you to Megan Ward, who we would see in stuff like Crash and Burn. I think Trancers 2 was the one that she was all over. I mean, so she's definitely a player in the Full Moon universe that's near and dear to a lot of our hearts. I think for a lot of us that grew up on these movies, she was maybe one of our first movie crushes, right along with like Danielle Harris and the chick from My Girl. Those were kind of mine. A couple others. Ariel from Little Mermaid. I don't know. But Arcade is... What's that?
Jacqueline Lavelle.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was just speaking in general, but yeah, Jackie Lavelle is delicious. She is one of my favorite Full Moon ladies. Eventually, at some point, we are going to do my top 10 Full Moon females list to give some, because those Full Moon Scream Queens don't really get the credit that they're deserved alongside of the more mainstream Scream Queens, which I feel is a slight to them in their work, and they definitely deserve to be recognized more often alongside the likes of a Jamie Lee Curtis or something, Heather Langenkamp. Jacqueline Lavelle might be in way more sleazy movies, but she's been in plenty of them, and she made an impact on a lot of us. She's actually in one of the movies we're going to be talking about here real soon. But yeah, I mean, Arcade also is a great example, much like it's sort of the opposite side of the coin of something like Doll Man, whereas in Doll Man, they were using like older technology to make, like a more modern movie. With Arcade, it shows how Full Moon was like definitely in the business sometimes of trying to push the envelope with somewhat new technology as well. This is them doing a bunch of what at the time was basically green screen stuff and CGI. It's just a very ambitious movie for a company like Full Moon to put out. So it shows how they were trying to maybe, push some boundaries a little bit, as opposed to just resting on their laurels of making cheap, really polished looking B movies. You guys got a history with Arcade at all?
No, I haven't seen it. But from the trailer, it looks like a mix of brain scan and what was that other movie? Fuck, I had it in mind.
It's basically if you throw like a little pinch of brain scan, little pinch of Tron, and then like just a dash of Nightmare on Elm Street. That's what you get with Arcade. They actually got cease and desisted from fucking Disney because of the original CGI, I guess, was basically just them blatantly ripping off Tron. So, rather than get sued or whatever, they actually had Peter Billingsley, Ralphie from A Christmas Story, go and supervise a new cut of all new CG for the movie, which is pretty cool. I didn't know that guy was into doing any of that kind of stuff. So it's pretty neat that, they gave him a shot at doing that. Also a great example of how Charlie was always really good about letting some of these people try out different, areas of the filmmaking process, as opposed to just being a character behind the camera or on screen.
I just also want to say the other film that I was going to mention is Videodrome.
Yeah. I could see a little bit of that. Great movie too. We'll have to do a cinema log for that over here one of these days. I don't know if Cody's ever seen it, but I think you would like it quite a bit. Real fucked up stuff. Those beautiful twisted 80s gems that you just have to see at least once in your life. Society is another one we're going to have to do on here. The Shunting, man. You'll never be the same. But yeah, I mean, that was my reasoning for picking Arcade. It's just a good intro to Full Moon being pretty ambitious, to kind of Full Moon doing somewhat family friendly, like horror films that you can just throw on and watch with the whole family. Charlie Band was always kind of adverse to doing like slasher movie stuff or too much overt blood and gore in a lot of the mainline full moon shit. And even to showing nudity in most of them. I mean, there's like a sweet set of tits or two in Puppet Master, but for the most part, like a lot of the mainline full moon stuff, it isn't too explicit. He saved that shit for some of their sub labels or movies that they would distribute, obviously had a bit of a harder edge to them sometimes. But this is perfect sort of middle of the road full moon stuff that's benign enough that you can show it to your whole family and have fun with it, but also full moon enough that you're still getting all the shit from them that you know and love. Don't know if I would recommend this get a sequel, but actually at the same time, it could probably end up being one of their better modern full moon movies if they did an arcade reboot, because they're big into, I think now they could afford CGI that would, and technology has came far enough by then too. You could do CGI that's reminiscent of arcade for relatively cheap. It wouldn't break the bank or anything for them to do one of these. And it would be super easy to shoot because they could just green screen a whole room at that fucking Cleveland mansion that they're shooting shit in now. And they wouldn't even need like locations for it, really. So,
I mean, I would say, I'm sure I would change my mind if I thought about it, but probably in my top 3 of best full moon standalone movies.
It's great, man. And it's got a kicking fucking, it's the alt rock soundtrack is so good. It's like such a snapshot of the 90s, man. I do believe I have it on disc. Again, I'm not super familiar with all the shit I have on my full moon soundtrack collection. I just sort of just bought all the stuff that they had. You know,
Right.
There's a couple I'm still missing. I think I need the Subspecies soundtrack still. But
yeah, I love it. It's definitely high up there. It's like I mean what I said for it's even with 30 years past, maybe a little bit longer, like it's still a fun movie. The dated effects don't hurt it, and it's something that, like you said, I mean, you can break out and watch with the youngins, and this used to be the best thing ever. This was the future.
Hell yeah. This blew our minds, man.
That's right.
And you know what is an interesting idea too? I don't know if you guys are aware of those guys, October Games, that are doing that Puppet Master game that's coming out, which once that drops, we all got to do like an online session of it, maybe stream it and just sort of play test the game. It's fun, dude. I played the demo of it all the way through a couple of times. It's got some potential. It's not a next gen game or anything. It's like an independent, like, basically a free game that they've been developing for years, but it's got a lot of potential for some really fun multiplayer and maybe a cool story mode if they decide to go that route with it. But I wouldn't mind seeing those same guys take and do basically the video game from arcade. I would play through that shit,
Have it be VR. Have it be VR.
Yeah. Oh shit. Yeah. VR's cheap enough now; they could easily do it too. I mean, you just make anything VR nowadays. So, yeah, get on that October Games. That would be super rad. And then they could use that to also sort of set up the sequel to arcade that they could shoot in the ways that I described earlier.
I agree with adding more like story mode to like these games because Friday the 13th tried doing that with the single player challenges. But it's not really like narrative wise. It's not it's the same. It's more different.
Leaves a lot to be desired. You're basically just playing through scenarios that could exist in a Friday the 13th movie as opposed to a story mode. And I gotta admit, I'm not much of an online gamer. When I did do online games back in the day, I played EverQuest. I was never like a competitive online gamer. So the Friday the 13th game didn't really appeal to me in that way, and I just ended up doing shit and getting achievements on those challenge modes because that was the only way I could play by myself,
Also,
definitely. Good.
No, it's also like hopefully this new Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Killer Clowns game have a story mode to it because I would like to see like their own narrative or tale of those stories, especially Killer Clowns. Like imagine like Killer Clowns storyline. Maybe it could be a sequel to the original. It takes place like within the same time frame as the original, or maybe right after. There's still clowns on the loose. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm
Something
down
like
with that. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, I don't so much care what the story is, as long as it's a story mode that I can play offline. As long as it's fun to play, it can, you know, maybe not be the best story, but I think your proposed idea there is a good one. Unfortunately, it does look like both of those games are kind of maybe following the model of the Friday the 13th game. So it's not guaranteed we'll get that, but I'm really hoping that comes to pass, because it's sorely needed. I think nowadays a lot of these companies are starting to realize too that not everyone just wants to play online all the time. A lot of adults are still buying video games that don't have time to do that shit, you know. So it's nice to have that option. And then, you know, you can always make it too to where we could play through storyline co-op with online, you know, with your friends. Not everybody wants to play competitively all of the time. That's kind of my bummer. I mean, like, I do like the ability to play with friends online. If we could all run through a Puppet Master story mode together, playing as like all of the puppets, that would be worth several streams on the channel. But I mean, if it's just competitive, you know, versus mode, like it seems like it's going to be, I think we'll probably end up just doing one stream where we play against each other, unless it's super fucking fun and we get addicted to it. But, you know, time will tell. But maybe, you know, think about that arcade adaptation, October Games. I think you guys could do it, and it would be a lot of fun. Even if it's just some one-off little, like, game that you can play through in probably the same amount of time it would take to watch the movie, it would still be a fun novelty to have. And if they do a physical of that Puppet Master game, even just for collectors, I'm going to buy it and have it on the shelf. I think that would be dope, especially if they do it old school, like big box PC game style, where it's like a big exaggerated box just to house a disc in a booklet. I'm there.
I also like to see like Supermassive Games, the guys who did like the Quarry and Until Dawn. Like, I like to see them do a game like a what you call it, like an Evil Bong game or something, you know.
Yeah,
it's like it's a choice-based game where, like, you know, you're playing as like a stoner or something, and you either have to like stay addicted to the bong or try to stay out of it. But when you stay out of it, you start like losing your mind, and you have to like fucking smoke the bong, because that will only make you stronger. And but of course the bong is evil, so it influences your mind in a more evil direction, I guess, something like that.
It'd be sweet too if like somehow you had the choice to smoke weed, you know, because they're always just smoking joints throughout the movies and stuff, and they're like actually stoned. It'd be cool if like your level of stonedness affected the options that you get in the various scenarios, you know. So if you fuck up and you decide to smoke too much weed recreationally in between the main events, it can fuck up the main events for you, you know, and create different outcomes based on how blazed you are, pretty much. I think that would be great. Great idea, Dominic. You're killing it tonight. So we're going to roll right into our second movie here, and then we're basically at the halftime point. I think this is going pretty well. I'm having fun. We're certainly kicking out some good recommendations for the people. So let's roll into it.
In the ruins of the Soviet Union, scientists have built the ultimate war machine. A mandroid, piloted by a human soul, capable of destruction beyond imagination.
If you're handing the Mandroid unit over to the United States, I'll make sure they know who really built it.
It had to be Drago. He's the only one who knows about the Supercon program, and now he has it all.
Right now, it is in your best interest to give the formula to me.
Let's go.
Mr. American Scientist, end of the road.
Mandroid, its power is in your hands.
And there it is, baby. Oh shit, we got a special guest appearing right there. Look at that sweet girl.
Jody, Stella's been asking about you.
Yeah, there she is, man. We need to do an interview with her on Schlockaholics one of these days. She's probably got a lot to say. That bunny's got more experience with these movies than a lot of people. And she looks perpetually disappointed in them too. So
yes, RBF, resting bunny face.
Yeah, she could be our hardline like critic, you know. We need to start featuring her face in some of these episodes. But yeah, you know, Mandroid is on this list 1000% because it's a good introductory movie to Full Moon's brief period where they were attempting to create their own superhero universe. They had movies like this. They had its sequel, Invisible Chronicles of Benjamin Knight, which is easily top 10 Full Moon movie for me. They also did Dark Angel, The Ascent, which is like their version of Spawn. They did Dr. fucking Mordred, which is literally a Doctor Strange movie that they were supposed to make that they had to retitle after they lost the option to do Doctor Strange.
You know, if that word got out more, that movie would be huge.
Oh yeah, I mean, I honestly don't understand how it isn't. You know, as popular as the Marvel shit is, and as much as that's driven like a renaissance of sort of nostalgia for some of the, you know, lesser versions that they tried to make back in the day, like Punisher and stuff like that, and the recently released, previously unproduced Fantastic Four movie. I would think that Dr. Mordred would get a good boost from being talked about more as a Doctor Strange movie. One of the few random things a friend of ours did that actually made some sense was retitling it as Doctor Strange. We got to find someone to do a little bit better of a job of it, but yeah, Mandroid's a solid, you know, baseline entry to that stuff. It's probably the worst of Full Moon's superhero movies that they did, but it introduces one of their best villains that thankfully was featured prominently in the sequel, and that's Dr. Drago. That guy is sinister as fuck, and his metal Dr. Doom mask is awesome. And then, you know, the Mandroid itself is pretty rad too. It's basically just Full Moon doing their version of Iron Man. Invisible Chronicles of Benjamin Knight was their version of, I guess, like a Sue Storm movie, kind of, you know, Invisible Girl, only they did it Invisible Man style and teamed him up with the Mandroid. So they were clearly building towards doing like their own version of a Full Moon Avengers style movie. Me and my buddy Chris Pico, who's been featured prominently on the Full Moon Lives in the past, kind of spitballed an idea, and he actually started writing a screenplay as sort of a writing exercise for something we called the Full Moon Revengers, which is, you know, Full Moon Avengers. And it would feature all of the people from the superhero movies we just mentioned. Radu from Subspecies is involved in it. One of these days, I'll forward you guys the last version of the script that he sent, and you can read it. Chris was doing an amazing job on it. He's actually a pretty accomplished filmmaker and screenwriter. So it was coming out real good, and it would be cool for us one of these days to do like a table read as a stream, you know, a table read of that Full Moon Revengers script. We could get Boris to play Radu because he has the accent. I think that would be fucking awesome. But yeah, Mandroid, man, definitely good baseline entry into their superhero universe. You guys have any history with this movie or thoughts on the trailer? If you don't,
yeah, I haven't seen this movie yet, but by the trailer, it looks absolutely awesome. But I would like, it kind of reminds me of RoboCop a little bit too. And also, I kind of look at it, I'm like, man, if they were to do a crossover, I like to see them do a crossover with like another robot type of character like Deadly Friend or something like that.
Fuck yeah, dude.
You know, yeah, it just, instead of like the robot chip is in a person's brain and you're half robot, half human, and then you got this robot that's fully robot. It's just that there's a human controlling it.
Yeah,
on the like somewhere else.
Yeah, man, and the way they do it in the sequel, the guy that's controlling it, like his whole arc, I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but it's pretty rad. So it does kind of create that sense of like, oh, you know, he's definitely not powerful at all as a human. He's got his own, you know, disabilities or whatever, but being, you know, controlling the Mandroid makes him a powerful character. And then obviously Doll Man was going to be involved in the Full Moon Revengers because he is kind of like a superhero in a way. I mean, when you think about Doll Man, he's going around like busting fucking skulls and blowing dudes apart with those like inner city gang type dudes. So he's sort of like a cross between like a Punisher character and like Ant-Man maybe, or the Atom, like a tiny dude that could do stuff for them. So there was a lot of potential in that Revengers script, and you know, I'll get back in touch with Chris and we'll start talking about doing that table read, because I think you guys, just as Full Moon fans, would be hyped to at least read the script. I mean, it was the type of thing when he was sending me updates about it, I was getting full nerdwood, you know, it's like just perfect. How have they not made this movie kind of a thing?
You know, it'd be cool. You know, I know if you're up to the idea, or the concept, but like, you know, it'd be cool. Like, yeah, you can write that script, do table reads and stuff. It would be cool, like, if you actually, you know, if you wanted to, if you wanted to, you can, you know, make a fan film out of it or something.
Yeah,
I get that.
Or like, our thoughts too was possibly a comic that Full Moon could sell on Full Moon Direct, you know. So either or, I would be stoked to see either of those come out of it. I mean, I didn't write the script. I was mostly just an idea man, and Chris was taking stuff that we would talk about. Obviously, the fucking Tim Thomerson using a gun as a weapon was not going to be in there. So there's no fucking Brick Bardo in fucking Jack Death's hand shooting the Kruger blaster. he knew to fucking take some of those ideas and leave them on the cutting room floor. But dude, I'm telling you, when you guys see how he brings them together and just that opening scene with Radu, it's chef's kiss on that script, Chris. It's good stuff. What about you, Cody? You ever seen Mandroid?
I haven't.
That shit. Oh man, you got to put that in its sequel, Invisible Chronicles of Benjamin Knight, on your watch list for one of these upcoming weeks. You won't be disappointed, especially that sequel.
Streaming, so I need to check it out.
Yeah, it's worth adding to the collection, and at least worth seeing once if you haven't seen it already. So that officially brings us to our 6th movie. We're trucking right along here, guys. We got some neat stuff to get into so far. I think with that basically, or with our next film, we leave, you know, the first half of the 90s behind, and we start entering into that late 90s, early 2000s territory, which a lot of people tend to, you know, regard or disregard rather, because of it being like not as cool, not as top tier as the earlier 90s output from Full Moon. But I think if you're turning a new fan onto this stuff, you'd be doing them a huge disservice by not giving them some good recommendations from those eras too, because even in their darkest days, Full Moon was still cranking out the odd gem here and there that was definitely worth seeing. And this movie also marks the official end of that era in terms of funding and production, because it was during this movie that a dispute led to Full Moon losing that sweet, sweet Paramount money that they used to get back in the day. So, you know, RIP to Charlie Band's bank account. You weren't buying any more Romanian castles after this, bro. Just a mansion in Cleveland.
What you really are inside, a killer. That's part of it.
Lefferts Corners.
Yeah, it's a Nuttin, about 200 miles south.
I'm just here for the money. One of you dies every 10 minutes till I get it.
We had a deal.
The storm's coming in.
Come on, Father. These damn things have been living under our feet and tearing us apart for 20 years.
I know that better than you.
There it is, baby. Lurking Fear. This one is on the list because, well, for a couple of different reasons. The main one being that it's a good baseline introduction to Full Moon's fairly long history of doing H.P. Lovecraft adaptations.
Yeah.
You know, they don't get enough credit for that because some of the shit was done under Empire back in the day, but they're responsible for a couple of the biggest classics in that avenue when it comes to Reanimator and From Beyond. I believe both of those are H.P. Lovecraft adaptations, and that's some source material that they've since revisited with the amazing Resonator series on their streaming service. Really hope that we get the other parts of that released physically soon. Recently upgraded, my copy of the first film to Blu-ray, and I'd like to add the rest of the trilogy at some point. So get on it, Charlie. What are you doing? But H.P. Lovecraft's Lurking Fear is definitely probably the worst of those adaptations, but it's still pretty rad because it's just also a great example of Full Moon doing yet another single location horror film, and Full Moon doing like some classic sort of straightforward creature feature action, which is something that they did several times throughout the 90s, especially. We got stuff like this, but you could go earlier and you could watch stuff like Seed People, which is like a sci-fi creature feature, or you could go forward and watch shit like Castle Freak, which is just another straightforward horror creature feature. And there's another one, Shrieker. That's another good example of Full Moon doing straightforward creature feature shit. Also a single location horror film. I just love them, man. I don't know. But cool creature design in this. You got Jeffrey Combs up in there. You got that girl from Hellraiser billed under a different name because she didn't want to be associated with Full Moon. So she's Ashley Loren in this. Actually, I think that's her actual name, but she's billed under a different name on the movie. I remember me and Chris making fun of it a bunch because it's like, well, I guess I understand it. I don't know if you were like coming from the pedigree of Hellraiser, if you'd want to be necessarily associated with Full Moon during the downslide. You guys have any experience with this movie? You ever check it out at any point?
No, I haven't. It looks pretty cool. I do like films like Reanimator. H.P. Lovecraft adaptations are pretty cool because, unlike like Stephen King, there's like H.P. Lovecraft does just the weirdest types of movies, or the weirdest types of books are adapted into screen form that is a little different from Stephen King's types of adaptations. Even like Clive Barker, like I kind of see like a relation between Clive Barker's work and H.P. Lovecraft's work because they both do a lot of
a little more bizarre,
Yeah, bizarre creature type of horror films. So, I say that comparison, but yeah, H.P. Lovecraft adaptations are awesome. Something.
Yeah, man. I mean, he likes to do that deep-seated, deep-rooted, like ancient horror that's beyond our comprehension kind of a thing, or like cosmic horror that's like way out there in Weirdville. This is more of an example of the latter. Just quick synopsis of it. Basically, there's like this ancient family of like cannibals that live underneath this church, and they eat the corpses from underneath in the graves, and pretty much anybody else that wanders around the church or the cemetery. There's this corpse that was filled with a bunch of cash by these mobsters that is buried in the cemetery. And so you got kind of like a criminal underworld element coming together and getting engaged in this hostage situation. And, the mobster guy's like forcing them to dig up this corpse. But, little obstacle is the clan of fucking cannibal creatures that live underneath the graveyard. Frequent rental for me as a kid. The poster and cover art for it just scared the shit out of me. This is not the original poster art. Highly recommend looking it up. It's pretty tasty. So I just would rent it all the time. I'm a big fan, as we've mentioned, of single location horror movies or siege movies where somebody's like stuck in a location trying to repel some outside forces. John Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13 is kind of similar to this movie in that sense. Or stuff like Feast, if you ever saw that movie. I think it was part of that Project Greenlight like program they were doing for a bit, where like Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and like a bunch of A-list people were funding indie horror movies, which was rad, or just indie movies in general. But yeah, man, you can't go wrong with some Lurking Fear. It's if you just want a movie to crack some beers to and watch some badass like creature feature action, along with like Jeffrey Combs just being drunk the entire time, cool explosions, Ashley Loren from Hellraiser like trying her best to do fight choreography, guns, cool mobsters, one of which is British for some reason, you're not going to be disappointed. What were you going to say,
Yeah,
bud?
it's interesting because you know, it's like siege movies. Like you think of like Die Hard and stuff, but like they're good ones. Like I think we talked about like Intruder. There's Alien, even Predator. Like if you look at Predator, this is one of the siege movies. Like they try to get more outside help, but like help's not coming, and like now they're stuck. They can't get out, or they can't get out. It's just that it's gonna be too late because like they're gonna get killed off by the
get to the chopper.
Get to the chopper now. I actually love. It was a little off topic, but I like Mac's character in that movie too. Like he goes,
Love it, dude.
Insane. Yeah,
fucking shaving and breaking that razor is like one of the most hardcore man fucking things I've ever seen in my life. Predator's right there with like over the top of being basically just made of pure testosterone. Like if you don't have hair on your chest when you watch that movie, you will by the end of it,
Yeah.
And your balls will probably have dropped a couple of octaves, What about you, Cody? You got any history with Lurking Fear? You familiar with that one?
Never seen it.
Nice. I'm glad that we're able to add some stuff to your guys' potential watch lists in the future here. That's the main reason why I like doing this shit, is kicking out movie recommendations to people and highlighting stuff that maybe people haven't seen that they might be a fan of, So it's, we've got a couple on the list, or at least one on the list for each of you guys tonight. So this has been productive all around already. I don't know. What do you what are your thoughts on the trailer? Does it look like something you'd probably enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, did Stuart Gordon did Stuart Gordon do that one?
No, he didn't.
Really? Wow.
It was C. Courtney Joyner, who I believe also did Seed People. So I think this was like
one
his
of the
second
movies too.
Yeah, he's not a bad dude. Movies. I think he also wrote some scripts for Full Moon back in the day, and if I'm not mistaken, he might have been DP on a couple of movies.
He did one of the Puppet Master movies, I think.
I think so. Yeah, I'd have to double check his filmography. And if you want to run that shit while we're running the next trailer real quick, man, I'm using my phone for the hotspot, so I might not be able to do it. But let us know some of those C. Courtney Joyner jams. But yeah, definitely one to add to your list. And you know what? Even if you don't fucking like the movie, the poster's awesome. So if you're a Full Moon fan, buy the poster from one of the many places that reprint Full Moon posters and hang it on that wall, because it's some spectacular art. This does not do it justice. So, we're going to move into, we're past the halfway point here. We're in the final stretch, motherfuckers, and I think this is going real good. Highly recommend that you put these movies in front of some first-time Full Moon viewers and see what they think. If they like any of the shit up to this point, they're going to have a solid foundation to go into the rest of the library and discover the other stuff that might appeal to them and see all of the gems, as opposed to seeing the gems first and then kind of having a lot of these lesser movies ruined for them a little bit. After our next movie, we are officially into the modern Full Moon era, which a lot of people disregard. I think that's some horse shit, and we'll explain why as we get into that stuff. But we will see you back here momentarily with our next film and with some C. Courtney Joyner gems. So.
No pressure.
You must have took a wrong turn.
Honey, there ain't no turns off this highway.
What was it, Lance? What did you see back there?
I saw the light, honey. I saw the light.
You've met my brothers and my sister, Mr. Vogan. I don't believe we've ever met. My name is Myron Stackpool. I'm the, pardon the expression, the head of the family. We Stackpools all have our peculiarities.
You made them folks downstairs go away. I want you to do the same thing for Howard Oates. You make him go away.
And you aren't at all concerned about my subjects down in the basement?
Letting you do what you do, just letting you stay around and keeping my mouth shut, that's a price to me. A man takes a risk, why he ought to get paid for it. Seems reasonable to me.
You press too hard and you make it worth it for me to employ desperate measures. I'm not normally a vindictive person, but in your case, I'm going to make an exception.
God damn, do I love this movie. It is twisted. It's weird. It'll separate the fucking deviants from, you know, just the general degenerates real quick when it comes to full moon stuff. A lot of my full moon friends do not like this movie because it got too sleazy and too weird for them. And I think that's fucking hilarious.
I love it.
Well, Myron's making an appearance right there. I should have had the foresight to bring these bad boys out earlier. Look at that. Let's give old Myron some proper screen time here. Yeah, man, I recently finally got the bride statue as well, which I believe we both did, didn't we?
Yeah, yours is different than mine.
Yeah, you had yours a lot earlier, and you have like the version 1 of it, which the proportions are slightly different, which is interesting. I did not think ahead enough to pull out merch for these, even though I told Cody we might do that. I fucked up. Thank you for coming through in the clinch, Cody. Look at those guys. They're so cozy together. And my Myron was on his lonesome for a long time, probably 2 years before they finally put the bride statue back out. Another of the Deadly 10 movies that we are still waiting on. And I get the feeling we are going to be waiting on it for some time to come. But we got the movie. We got the fucking statues. I'm good with that at the moment. Head of the Family is just a rad, crazy time. To try to explain this in the time that we have available in this video would be damn near impossible because the movie is whacked. You'll notice that the leading man from Lurking Fear came back for this movie. In my opinion, the superior film. But definitely one that should be on everybody's list because it's a good intro into, in my opinion, the successful pivot Full Moon made from doing like these glossier, more high-end like horror offerings and stuff through the earlier 90s. In the late 90s, they lost that Paramount money. They still had some residual funds left over to make some pretty decent movies. I mean, you can clearly tell that Head of the Family isn't as cheap as some of the stuff they did later on. But they made the best of it. They pivoted into the weird, sexy realm that Full Moon would become more known for and is still known for to this day. And they were always kind of dabbling in that on their sub-labels, but with the loss of that Paramount funding, they pretty much had to, you know, straight up, you know, lean into the qualities that could maybe make up for the budget, half of which is pretty much Jacqueline level, because she also came back for Hideous, which is another one of Full Moon's really weird and twisted late 90s gems. Sadly, I don't think she was in Blood Dolls from my memory, even though that's one of their better movies from the time too. If she could have been in that as well, it would have been such an epic trilogy of terror for her to be in. Twisted, kinky terror featuring Jacqueline level. She did come back for Trophy Heads, one of her better roles, in my opinion. And she was in a bunch of Surrender Cinema stuff, so if you don't get enough of her in those movies, you can see her naked as fuck in plenty of those. I don't know. You have a history with the movie, Cody. What have been your thoughts on Head of the Family?
Yeah, I mean, I love them. Like I was saying before, it's in my top 3 standalone movies because we haven't got the sequel yet, and this is probably one of the few things that they actually released something for that they haven't released the movie for. So it's kind of, hopefully something will happen, because they actually have statues for, they have t-shirts for, but yet the movie hasn't happened yet.
I mean, I'm not holding my breath for Shadowheart's Curse or the Grim Rapper actually coming out, but I think Head of the Family has enough like old school retro, I guess at this point, full moon name recognition that I'm pretty sure we're getting it. Also, that baby oopsie, Cleveland, the Full Moon Mansion in Cleveland that Charlie bought is the perfect location to shoot a Head of the Family movie.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the house in the first movie burns down at the end, and they're like at a hotel room or some shit. So definitely, like, there's room for that weird kinky lady and that big brute guy to go off and start a new family. Maybe Myron obviously didn't die in the first movie, and he gets a bride, and they start a whole new brood. For my money, Head of the Family is almost Full Moon's version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, it's kind of like a weird, twisted backroads family that's, committing murders and stuff. The plot of it is pretty genius. The dark comedy element of it is arguably the finest dark comedy Full Moon has ever made, is Head of the Family. I mean, it's... A lot of people write it off as just late 90s junk, and I think that's bullshit. Head of the Family is one of the better movies that they've ever done, and it just happened to be during that period where they had to pivot from the Paramount days and lean into some of their sleazier elements. You could argue some of the later movies like Hideous or Blood Dolls take that to the extreme, and I wouldn't fucking contradict that at all. I still like it, but a lot of the old school Full Moon fans kind of check out at this point. And a lot of them would not put this on a recommendation list for a new fan. But I think if you want an introduction to the twisted terror that they were doing later on and the sexy, kinky fucking qualities of later Full Moon movies, you can't do much better than Head of the Family. What about you, Dom? You got any history with Head of the Family? You ever see that flick?
No, I haven't. By the trailer, it looks like a mix of Nothing But Trouble and Vacancy. Kind of reminds me a little bit of that, like because like the whole like roadside thing. I think I saw like a motel. I don't know. It kind of reminds me of that visually.
There's some seedy backroads hotel, like almost eaten alive vibes to certain parts of it. You'll love it. I don't want to even give it a synopsis because the plot is so fucking weird that you just need to see Head of the Family and like just let that fucking sleazy, sweaty weirdness envelop you. But it honestly, of all the ones that you haven't been familiar with tonight, I would say put Head of the Family like at the top of your priority list with them. Watch this one immediately if you can, and then check out the other stuff that's involved there. So I got to send some of these rain doggies back to the sea, but if Cody wants to read off a couple of those C. Courtney Joyner gems while I'm gone, and then possibly send me a list of them later, depending on when I get back in there, that would be great. So stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back with our next film.
Yeah, he was he did the story for Puppet Master 3, and he was also in Things 3 as well. Like a mobster, something like that. Dominic, did you end up going to that CreepyCon this weekend?
Oh man, I bought tickets, right, for Saturday. And the freaking thing was apparently sold out, right? And I thought I bought my ticket in time because it didn't say sold out at the time, but when it said sold out, it was on like the website, and then I got a text saying, "Sorry, we couldn't get you your tickets for the CreepyCon event. Here's a refund." And so they gave me my refund, and I couldn't go Saturday. And I was trying to see if I can go Sunday, but we had this, so I didn't want to go and like miss this opportunity. So yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't go.
Oh fuck, buddy, that's a bummer. I would have bailed on us in a second to go to that. I appreciate it. That warms my heart that you prioritized us. But fuck, man, that CreepyCon Sundays when they do all the flash sale shit at conventions too. So you could have came out with some pickups that are way cooler than me and this furry little guy.
Yeah. No, I looked at the list.
I'm getting pretty furry myself too. I got some fucking Wolfman shit going on there that I really need to sort out.
Yeah, I was looking at all the people there. They had Ski Ultridge, they had Lisa Rose. Like they had a bunch of people there that you would just know on the top of your head. But I couldn't go unfortunately on Saturday. Wanted to go Sunday today, but I was like, nah, I wanted to do this because I wanted to see what you guys had in mind when it comes to like full moon features I haven't seen yet. So definitely, I'm glad I stay here because having a good time.
Yeah, man, and it's been productive video recommendation wise. I mean, you came out with a good handful of gems to check out, and Cody's even came out with a couple that he hasn't seen, I think. So that's pretty good. It looks like old C. Courtney Joyner was also in Decadent Evil in an uncredited role, so I'd be curious to see where he's at in that. I do remember him in Things now as that mobster. Doesn't he like get shot or something, or they shoot a dude? He's in it only for like a few minutes, but he's in there for sure. And speaking of like, 90s, like low budget schlock like that definitely, well, I think Things 3 that was like the last of the 90s ones, right? And then with Things 4, it was like when they rebooted it later with Sterling for the box sets and things like that. But we do have, something from those camps of dudes. We got a J.R. Bookwalter produced affair here, directed by old Jay Wolfel, and produced by David Sterling. So our next film is a rare Sterling foray, the only one to my knowledge, into the Full Moon camp for distribution. So fucking A.
What would a vacation be to him if he didn't have some kind of contest?
Because you said this was a hike, not a climb.
Come on, you're doing great. Still, I don't think this is a very good idea to split up. Taking different routes to the top just seems stupid.
Check it out.
What if something bad happens?
Slaughter of the guilty.
Power of a god.
Is this supposed to happen? I mean, someone ought to put up a sign or something.
Hey, Victus.
Right, yeah, Latin, sure. Carpe diem.
Floor to the banquet.
Tyrannus, he was a gladiator in the 1st century BC.
Yeah, so what?
Tyrannus believed in evil. He worshipped the creature gods of the Etruscans.
Tyrannus!
And got his revenge.
So what Gina was telling us is that Tyrannus killed her, Anthony, and most of our friends? It's the craziest thing I've ever heard, Dino.
What about the craziest thing you've ever seen?
Really got to look into Multicom and whatever their relationship with Full Moon was, because they did something on a bunch of Full Moon movies that I've never quite been able to figure out. Maybe they distributed them in different regions. I know some of these trailers have been for 88 Films releases of the Blu-rays, and I think 88 Films is like a European company, aren't they?
88 films. Yeah, not so sure. Yeah, no, I don't know.
It's interesting. It's one of those brands that you see pop up in relation to Full Moon stuff a lot of the time, but I've never, went and looked into what exactly the relationship was. I did speak in error when I said that J.R. Bookwalter was involved in this. It was actually David Sterling that produced it, as we mentioned before going into it. JR, I think, came on around like Witch House 2 and stuff like that. And then he did Witch House 2 and 3. And then he also did Stitches and like Dead and Rotting. And I believe those were all movies that they were made with the understanding that Full Moon would be distributing them. So they weren't made by Full Moon. They were made by like other indie dudes, but they were made with the intention of distributing them under the Full Moon label. So this is another great example of Full Moon pivoting into more indie related stuff.
And there he goes.
That's gonna be a cool thumbnail.
That's crap though. They sold you tickets to that creepy con and then they already oversold it.
Yeah, because like found like because they send me email like after they said they sold out, and so I was like, wait, but I already paid for my tickets, and they say, yeah, well, you paid too late, and I was like, no, like I paid early on, before you guys announced it, so I don't know, I don't understand what's happening. So I tried to figure out like why, but I was like, okay, I'm just gonna get the refund and then I'll just pay for the Sunday one. But like I said, you guys are on today, so it was like, I ain't missing this.
That just hits me right in the heartstrings, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
you're a Schlockaholic for life, right there, buddy. You're allowed on any of these shows you want to come on. Exactly. But as I was saying, this is a great example of Full Moon doing a pretty smart move of pivoting to involving some other indie guys that are known for doing pretty decent product on a budget and having them make movies specifically to be distributed by Full Moon. Prior to this point, Full Moon, to my knowledge, didn't distribute a ton of movies other than maybe some Wizard Video stuff back in the day. They mostly just made movies, different types of movies, and sold them under different sub-labels. But sort of starting with stuff like Demonicus and Witch House 2 and moving onward, like I said, JR didn't actually do this. It was David Sterling, but he did Witch House 2 and 3. He did Stitches, Dead and Rotting for Full Moon. And it sort of just brought them into the world of late 90s, early 2000 indie horror. And they weren't sort of separated from that, like they had been in the past. Full Moon was sort of their own camp, and they didn't really involve too many guys that weren't sort of like home raised by Full Moon. Dave Dakota was big in the indie world, but he also sort of started making movies for Charlie Band. So it's, a lot of the indie guys they had involved in their camp prior to stuff like Demonicus weren't necessarily indie guys that were totally unrelated to Full Moon, but this era ushered that in, and it kind of is something that they've continued to this day. I mean, you got guys like Jim Wynorski now making big bimbo movies for Full Moon, and Killbots, which is about to drop here in the near future. Definitely one we might have to do a little Full Moon discussion for after that's up on the streaming site. Share our thoughts on that bad boy. Looks like there's going to be some bimbos, some bots, and a lot of blood and guts. That's all I need. But Demonicus is just pretty much your standard sort of supernatural slasher film. There's like this Greek gladiator guy that is revived from the dead up in the Alps while they're hiking through there, and he stalks a group of friends and slices and dices them. That's pretty. I think he actually possesses one of the friends. So it's like a possession thing going on, but a slasher, kind of like what they did with Jason Goes to Hell, but not related to an iconic character. So there's no reason to be mad that it's that dude. in like some Spirit Halloween gladiator armor. But it's just a fun movie, man. It's a fun low budget flick. I would probably like Demonicus quite a bit if I'd got it from Sterling, even if it wasn't related to the Full Moon stuff. But the fact that it kind of crosses over a couple of different lanes of our B movie fandom is pretty cool. Had either of you guys seen this? I mean, Cody's familiar with it, at least in title, but you have any history with Demonicus?
Yeah, it's been a while though.
It's a good one, man. That's one I could see submitting for Schlockaholics, like even outside of a Full Moon discussion. Obviously, it's a Full Moon, a proper Full Moon title, so we'll do it over here if we ever do it, which we will at some point. But if that was just like a Sterling movie, it probably would be the type of thing I would submit at some point, just because it's a little different than the Killer Clown stuff. You know, it's kind of in its own weird little lane. I mean, you know, Greek gladiators aren't exactly a common theme in fucking horror movies in general, let alone slasher movies, you know. I think it might be the only one I've ever seen, actually. What about you there, Dominic? You have any history with Demonicus? You ever see this flick?
No, I haven't. It looks cool, like an interesting like killer, like a gladiator slasher. Like that's something.
A little bit. Yeah, it's unique, right? I'm surprised Sterling didn't try to run with the idea and do his own box set with like multiple sequels to it that just doesn't include the first one. True. They always do have those like armor pieces and things at Spirit Halloween, so they could easily do some. We could do a Demonicus movie if we wanted, because it's also not tied to a specific person playing the character. Literally, the gimmick is that the gladiator possesses someone and then goes about killing. So definitely some potential for future indie flicks out of that little property there. Maybe something that Full Moon should have pursued. But obviously, I'm guessing Full Moon and Charlie wasn't hyped on working with David Sterling, so it didn't work out. To my knowledge, it's the only movie that they ever partnered for. So, you know, probably something we would have been very unlikely to see a sequel from Full Moon. But you could still do it, David. You know, fluff up that fucking mullet, get some funding, and let's make this shit. Me and Cody will buy a box set like yesterday. So get on it. We'll even buy that cheap Spirit Halloween sword that you're going to include as a $200 screen use prop. Just let us know, buddy. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's, like I said, a great example of Full Moon pivoting more into the indie community proper and doing some stuff with that. It's also a good example of sort of the quality you could come to expect from earlier 2000s / proper late 90s Full Moon stuff. I mean, they did a lot of like super low budget stuff, starting with kind of The Dead Hate the Living onward was Full Moon, you know, that stuff like that. Ragdoll, which will, you know, almost made this list in place of Demonicus. You know, they did a lot of almost no budget movies for a little bit there until Charlie got the brilliant idea of doing the road shows and kind of gave them a little boost to the pocketbook so that they could afford to do stuff like our next film right here, which I'm pretty sure Cody hasn't seen. I know I had never seen it until I got it as part of a recent haul from Full Moon, but it's definitely one that I think should be on everyone's watch list if you want a solid introduction to kind of mid 2000s Full Moon stuff. Demonicus, I think, was 2001. No, but that was almost on the list.
Okay.
Well, what the hell? Why is there no sound for this trailer? Do you guys have sound?
Just you, bro.
Well, I guess so. We'll just do like some dun 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 dun. I don't know what the fuck happened here. I downloaded all of these the same way, and this definitely had sound when I watched it. But this is Dr. Moreau's House of Pain. I believe this came out in 2003, so still kind of early 2000s, entering into the mid 2000s. As you can see here, you got several regular players from the Evil Bong franchise involved in there. You got the grandpa from Evil Bong playing Dr. Moreau himself. You've got, I forget his name, but the main dude from Evil Bong playing the leading man in this, where he's playing like a World War II era kind of soldier guy. And you've got the little fella from the Evil Bong movies with the raspy voice playing the main like pig monster in the movie. There might be some other people from those flicks involved as well. I think that Asian guy might have been in one of the later Puppet Master movies that they did. I could be wrong about that. But it's just a solid example of like the sort of general baseline quality you could expect from the early 2000s Full Moon output. They were starting to have a little bit more money again so that they could, you know, make stuff that's a little bit better than shit like The Vault or Ragdoll. Not that I don't like Ragdoll quite a bit, but, you know, it's definitely on the cheaper end of the Full Moon spectrum. With Dr. Moreau, they got some, you know, decent basic creature effects going in there again. And, you know, they could actually afford some decent locations and give it like sort of the general like glossy feel that you would start getting again from them with stuff like Dog Graveyard or the later Puppet Master movies. I mean, there's still, if you know, to the trained eye, there's still a lot of cheapness going on, but it's like higher quality cheapness than some of the stuff they were kind of stuck making in the earlier 2000s. So it was Full Moon during an upswing, and that lasted for a little while, and then eventually it kind of tapered off and they had to start doing cheaper stuff again. But when they pivoted back into the cheaper stuff, which we'll talk about with our final film, they had kind of figured out their formula for doing it. So we got like, you know, even like a good middle ground between this and the late 90s Full Moon shit is kind of where Full Moon's at to this day, you know. When we get to the essentials list, obviously we'll throw some absolute fucking gems from, you know, the modern Full Moon era, like this guy right here. But, you know, prior to that, I'd say this was the first movie they did that I would wager would give people hope that Full Moon could get back to a better place than they were in the early 2000s. And it's just a solid film, you know. It's not the best. It's definitely like a weird sequel to a novel that never needed to be produced, you know. It's kind of a sequel to the original Island of Dr. Moreau adaptation. So it's neat in that way if you're a fan of the book. And it's neat in the fact that it has some cool creature effects and some decent locations and stuff like that. From what I understand, the plot of the movie is basically, I mean, from what I remember, the plot of the movie is basically like Dr. Moreau has relocated to like California, obviously. And he's just trying to do his experiments all over again. And they're not working out, you know. So it's classic Beast Man, mad scientist type stuff. Decent blood and gore in there, some real abrupt kills of ladies that you thought were going to be the main lady of the movie. It's got a lot going for it, and I think that if you're, you know, interested in sort of the genesis of what would be that sort of mid 2000s 2010 era of Full Moon, Dr. Moreau is definitely one that you gotta check out at some point. You ever fuck with that movie, Cody?
Yeah, I watched it. It's kind of weird. It's something they never talk about anymore.
Yeah, which is bizarre because it has so many people that are involved in like actually their biggest franchise outside of Puppet Master.
Right.
You would. Did you enjoy it? I mean, it's not the greatest, you know, but it's like a fun little beer and popcorn flick.
I think it's weird you talked about, mentioned that, and I said Petrified. That was a year later. And the reason why I brought that movie up, that was like their big, that and Evil Bong, or what, Dead Man's Hand or Casino of the Damned or whatever you want to call it. Like those were their two big movies when they did the Roadshow in 2005.
Right.
But I don't remember hearing anything about House of Pain.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's an oddity because honestly, I didn't even notice that it was a Charlie Band directed movie. And it was sitting in my wish list on Full Moon Direct for years. Like it was just sitting there because it was like, it's one of their cheapo movies from the early 2000s. I'll get it at some point, you know. And then when I got it and watched it, it was like, how the hell is this not something that is like pushed more by Full Moon as one of their gems, you know, because it kind of is, you know. Again, it's not the best movie, but it's solid Full Moon, like early mid 2000s Full Moon stuff. You'd think it would be one of those that they're trying to put out there. I wouldn't even mind buying statues of some of these characters, just because there's pretty cool, like Dr. Moreau style character design on them, you know. So they didn't skimp on it.
I mean, I would put it above Evil Bong, and they made 7-8 sequels of that movie.
All right, Nami came to update us that Last of Us is being watched right now. Good luck.
There's notes coming out at 9 p.m.
Yeah, I would say that Dr. Moreau's House of Pain is definitely better than the Evil Bong movies.
I don't like the Evil Bong movies.
I like the first 4. The rest of them I could take or leave.
I have the stash box because it was free.
Right, and it is a nice looking box set when it shows up not damaged by shipping.
Yeah, they did good.
I wonder if Brandon ever got his replaced. I think he might be going on like a year waiting for his replacement for that stash box. Full Moon's customer service definitely needs to be fired en masse and rehired with people that actually want to do their job. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if House of Pain could have supported sequels, because it is just a kind of a random sequel to an existing movie and book, but it's a neat little oddity from that era of Full Moon. And like I said, it gives you a good baseline introduction to the kind of quality that they're going to be working with going forward from that point, and some of the regular players that you would see in stuff like the Evil Bong movies. Have you ever seen Dr. Moreau's House of Pain, Dominic? Is that one that you have any kind of familiarity with?
No, I haven't seen it yet. So I'll definitely add that to my watch list.
Nice. It sounds like he's having some network issues over there. I probably should have noticed that his thing was refreshing before I went and asked that. But yeah, definitely add it to your watch list, man. I don't know if you've ever seen any of the other Dr. Moreau adaptations, so it's definitely not going to be on par with any of those. I personally really like the Richard Stanley one that they did in the 90s with Fairuza Balk and what's his ass, The Godfather. Apocalypse Now, Marlon Brando, Val Kilmer's in that bitch. It's weird as fuck, kinky as fuck. For my money, the best Dr. Moreau adaptation. But House of Pain is fun. Yeah, it's certainly fun. Also, kind of a single location horror film, because it all takes place in this weird, like, Hollywood mansion that sort of doubles as a creepy torture castle. So you got that going for you as well. Real weird fake boobs on the cat lady, though. She is no Fairuza Balk. So we're going to jump into our final film of the night, guys. This is going to be one of those ones comes in right around 2 hours. It's starting to be a sweet spot that we're able to hit. And we have packed a lot of content into this bitch. So we're going to run that final trailer and share our thoughts on that final film. Hopefully this is one that both of you guys have seen at some point. I feel like it's one that would be up all of our alley. So let's find out.
Excuse me, sir.
Can I help you?
You can help me by emptying this register.
You serious?
You holding out on me?
No.
Wrong answer.
Thank God you guys are here. He needs an ambulance and fast.
Keep your hands where I can see you.
Know you're innocent. Somehow I will bring justice to your name. Devin? What happened to you?
You got off scot-free.
Who's Scott?
Came back because you have unfinished business.
Looks like a party's happening here.
Get out here where I can see you!
Don't want any trouble, lady.
Well, too bad. You found it.
You don't say.
This party rocks.
Love you.
Oh, man.
What do you think you're gonna do to me?
Can't stop him.
I don't remember you.
sure hope that had sound. The sound seemed to be trying to play for me, but honestly could not hear most of it on account of it lagging in and out. Was there sound for you guys on that one? Cool. I was starting to get nervous that maybe old Charlie fucking saw the stream and copyright claimed it, so they were muting our trailers. I don't know if Facebook has the technology to do that, though. Yeah, man, Ooga Booga is a solid favorite of mine from sort of the late 2010s. You know, it's like mid 2010s, actually, 2013 for Ooga Booga. Probably one of Full Moon's most controversial films because people like tend to look at it as being racist and like without even seeing it. They don't sell the Ooga Booga statue anymore, for example. I think because of that stuff. Charlie pretty much mentioned it on an episode of The Freak Show. And it's a bummer, man, because really Ooga Booga is like anti-racist if you actually watch the movie. His whole thing is he goes around and kills racist motherfuckers, you know. And it's also, at the same time as being that, it's like a tribute to old school, like indie horror. What is it? The Trilogy of Terror, the Black Devil Doll movie from back in the day. Stuff like that. But more specifically, that Trilogy of Terror. You even have Karen Black coming back and basically playing like a tribute character to her shit in that movie. Those of you guys that don't know her, she also plays Mama Firefly in House of a Thousand Corpses. And you have Stacy Keach in this bitch playing a really sleazy, racist fucking scumbag who gets his eye pulled right out of his fucking face. I don't know. It's also a good example of Full Moon adding like a neat character to their Tiny Terror sort of lineup. And he appears frequently in other stuff. I believe he crosses over into a couple of the Evil Bong movies. So it's you know, setting up some cool stuff that would cross over with shit like Zombies versus Strippers through the toys and the Evil Bong franchise later. And I just really enjoy it. Have either of you guys messed with Ooga Booga at all?
I think I only watched it when it first came out. I probably should watch it again, but it's kind of weird that kind of got swept under the rug. And you would think Full Moon would be so big on that controversy, they would kind of push it a little further.
I mean, I usually never get political on here, and I'm not going to start now, but Charlie is a dyed-in-the-wool California liberal who's definitely also a B-movie sleazeball at the same time, which is why we love him. But he knows very well that Ooga Booga could get them canceled, you know, and they cannot afford to like have any. They barely get mainstream attention ever throughout the entire history of Full Moon, and I'm sure he doesn't want the mainstream attention that they do start to get because of like something that could be viewed as racist from the outside looking in. They still sell that Gook statue though, so I don't know, man. You literally sell a statue called Butt Pirate that's a dude like this, you know, but you can't sell Ooga Booga. Like, just grow a set. If anybody who fucking accuses Ooga Booga of being racist, all they have to do is watch the movie to see that that's not the message that's going on there. What about you, Dominic? Have you seen Ooga Booga?
I'm not sure. I know it's not well, the film is about the killer doll / it's like a voodoo doll that the guy turns into, and he goes after racist people, and it's against racism. I don't see any problem with what the film is doing. You know, making a message, for those people. But yeah,
it's just when you look at it, you know, when you look at it out of context, it's like,
yeah,
you know. So I get it. I mean, those other statues I have from them, like, when my girlfriend first came over here, I was super fucking nervous for her to ever look at those, and Jody still hasn't even seen them. So my current girlfriend has not experienced the Gook or the Butt Pirate or the other statues that Full Moon has sold to me. So it's like one of those things in your house you have to explain, like, listen, this isn't like me owning, some relic of the blackface days or something. This is This is in the movie. It's not as bad as it seems. Basically, is what's going on. I just think it's neat because again, it like introduces you to sort of the baseline quality of the 2010s with Full Moon, especially the latter half of it. It introduces you to some crossover shit that's going to be present in stuff like Zombies versus Strippers and Evil Bong. And it's a rare instance where Full Moon kind of, did a throwback to the 70s, which is neat. Charles Band started his film career back in the 70s with shit like Mansion of the Doomed and Laser Blast and all that stuff, and several nudie cutie type like erotic comedies that he did. So him calling back to something that is a cult classic on the level of Trilogy of Terror is pretty cool. You could look at this as almost a loose sequel to that shit, or at least that skit. It's been a long time since I've seen the full thing of Trilogy of Terror, and I don't know if I've ever actually seen it in full or just that doll segment from it. But it's pretty well known, so it's them kind of like paying homage to it without directly ripping it off either. You know what I mean? Like they could have made this a lot more easily identifiable as something that's related to that shit, but they didn't. They just called it Ooga Booga and did their own thing. And I got mad respect for them for doing that because, a lot of other people would have been less shameless about it and tried to market it as a sequel to that thing, which they easily could have done, as I said, but they didn't, So a little bit of integrity shown on Charles Band's side is always something we're celebrating because it doesn't always happen.
We got Michael Manali on here.
Oh, shit. Came to bless the stream. The OG, this is official. Yeah, we can publish this thing to the world.
What's up,
Thanks, brother. Missed you. I'm surprised that Jack stream went as well without him in there, but I only did that on Schlockaholics, so that's why. Yeah, we needed some Michael in there, but I think it went pretty good. Let's keep this streak going, though, buddy. Just pop in and say hi whenever the feeling strikes you. I think we've put together a fine list, though, of Full Moon movies for you guys to check out with us. A lot of stuff in here that was new to Dominic, several things in here that were new to Cody, so it's been hopefully beneficial for you guys as well, giving you some stuff to look forward to checking out from the old back catalog there. If I had to pick a top 3 out of these movies as what I think are probably the best ones, I mean, obviously, right out of the gate, I would probably do Doll Man and Demonic Toys, but we're going to go ahead and consider that cheating because those movies are just too good. So if I had to pick a top 3 from the rest of the movies that are in there, definitely you got to put Head of the Family on the stack. Then after that, I would probably for sure throw in some Shadow Zone. And then the last one would probably be a toss-up for me between Arcade and Lurking Fear. And as much as I do like elements of both, I'm going to have to just split the difference and go with Mandroid. Those are probably the ones that you should prioritize out of the batch. And then you're kind of left with these, which are all great too. Very productive stream. I don't know. Of the movies that you've seen in this batch, Cody, what would you say is your favorite movie?
Say Head of the Family. I would say it's a toss-up between Head of the Family and Arcade.
Nice. Of the ones we've mentioned that you were, familiar with, Dominic, which is probably your favorite?
So we did so Doll Man, Demonic. I'm just listing Demonic Toys. Yeah, I'm trying to see. Okay, Demonic Toys. What's the top one say? That's the night. That's the Roman one, right?
No, Dr. Moreau's.
Well, the only one. Oh, okay.
We actually left Demonicus out of it. I don't know why that one got fucking set over there.
I would say yeah. I gotta go with it's a toss up between Doll Man and Demonic Toys. I would say
that's fair. What about the ones that were new to you? Which trailer of the ones that you're unfamiliar with had you the most intrigued? That's also a good follow-up.
Yeah. I would say the one that had me more intrigued was Arcade. That one,
Yes.
Arcade, is the one that had me most intrigued. Yeah.
Good form, Wesley.
Yes.
He's on the right path. What about you, Cody? Of the ones that you were unfamiliar with, which one looked probably the most appealing?
I still want to watch Lurking Fear.
Hell yeah. I think you'll proper enjoy it. Trick or Treat Studios actually sells a replica. One of their few full moon pieces is a pretty goddamn nice Lurking Fear mask of those creatures. So definitely something I'm hoping to add to the shelves over here at some point. And you being the mask guy that you are, a little masked maniac over there. I would imagine it's something you wouldn't mind putting on there too if you end up liking the movie. Won't be screen used or anything because in the movie they weren't masks. It was clearly like prosthetics and shit. But as close as you can get. I mean, those Trick or Treat Studios sculpts are usually pretty great. So
yeah.
Well, for the high-end masks, I think they're like $65 for the full moon ones too. They also have Castle Freak, like the Freak from Castle Freak. And one other one, and then they've got some cheaper ones like a Ginger Dead Man mask and a couple Puppet Master ones. I thought about getting the Blade one to wear when I hand out candy on Halloween and shit. Or Pinhead. They do have a mask of him, and he's my boy. I saw him sitting right back there behind Cody earlier. I just want to pick him up and squeeze him.
He's somewhere.
So this, it's been pretty productive. I think we're going to definitely do more of these. You guys can look forward to. There's my boy, all cozy in his turtleneck. We're definitely going to be doing a Full Moon Essentials stream. We've got several lined up for Full Moon like franchise discussions. And then we'll probably do our top 5 or top 10 Full Moon females to highlight those Scream Queens. And there's several other lists that I'd like to do in the future. Maybe if we're lucky, we can coax old Jester Mikey out of the ether, get him on here. You can wear your mask or whatever, man. We're fine with that, obviously. I think that there's a lot of potential for these list videos when it comes to full moon stuff. And I think that it's a good way to turn people on to this shit that maybe haven't messed with it as much in the past. Obviously, you guys, I would consider both like pretty, knowledgeable full moon fans, especially Cody. I haven't known you as long, Dominic, but you seem like you know what's up with full moon as well. And we even managed to pull a couple of deep cuts out of the back catalog for you guys to check out, which is pretty cool. I think that this list was, the way to go with it. A lot of people would have thrown out what we'll eventually throw out in our Full Moon Essentials list, which I think we might do where we all come with shit and feature a trailer from each of our stack. Just that way you guys can get some input too. This was just something I kind of threw together to relaunch Full Moon Madness for a new year here. And I think it went pretty well. But, a lot of people would just throw out the essentials. They would throw out the top tier Full Moon stuff. And it would kind of rob like a newcomer from the ability to check out this beautiful catalog of films and start at a good base level to where then they can level up to the better examples of that stuff rather than work backwards and find some of this stuff disappointing. If you watch like Sideshow before you watch Demonicus, you're definitely going to be kind of more bummed on Demonicus because Sideshow is so much better. But you can watch Demonicus and then be like, all right, I've got some hope for that era of Full Moon, and then go ahead and watch Sideshow by Fred Olen Ray and have your absolute ass kicked right off of you because that movie rules. So I don't know. I guess the message of this too would be if you're going to make a recommendation list for somebody that's new to a group of films, I think the best way to do it is kind of to do it like this, where you include a couple of the top tier bangers with Dollman and Demonic Toys, and then the rest of it is sort of entry level stuff. It's not the best stuff right out of the gate. For every entry in this, I could have recommended a way better movie, with the exception of Dollman and Demonic Toys. That would have been a better example of that stuff, like Mandroid, for example, being the entry-level superhero movie. If I had, for my money, it would be a tie between Dark Angel and Dr. Mordred, probably with Dr. Mordred taking the win. So I could have just told them to watch Dr. Mordred, but now they would be more inspired to check out the other stuff. So that's the theory behind this. Next time when we come back with that essentials list, it's pretty much going to be all bangers, top to bottom. I don't think any of us are going to pick any stoinkers for that thing. So No matter what, you're going to come out of it with good film recommendations, good reason to go back and revisit the stuff. And let us know below what you think you would make for your, entry-level full moon recommendation list. So now we're going to just hit some plugs. You got anything you want to plug up in this bitch, Dominic? You got anything going on? Anything coming up? Anything you want to recommend? It's your time. Use it wisely, my friend.
I just planning to shoot this Halloween fan film coming up this February, and planning to release it this Halloween 2023. So on my YouTube channel, Dominic St. Clair Studios. So yeah, and that's what's going on my channel, and that's my channel name. Right now I'm also like planning to shoot a one single location slasher film. It's about these group of people that end up in this one place. Act like they all get knocked out, and then they're in this one like place like out in the woods, and they got to find a way to get out, but there's like a monster or some sort of person chasing after them and trying to kill them.
Fuck yeah.
But
like a blind-scented version of Saw, except with instead of a lame puppet on a tricycle, we get a monster. Fuck yeah. I'm into it, bro.
Yeah. And it's a they're all they're all there for a reason, and that's all I can say for that. So
it sounds dope.
That's
I'm
something.
there for it.
Yeah. So yeah, just trying to save up some money and get that thing going. Once I'm done with this film. Yeah.
Looking forward to it, man. Both of them. Definitely make sure that you update us somewhere we can watch that shit when it's done. Obviously, it'll be up on Dominic St. Clair Studios, so check him out on YouTube. We are going to be adding him to our link tree at the end of our episodes, which I think we've forgotten to use, but I have been putting it in the description, and I will update this description with it as well. So, on any of our Schlockaholics episodes, you can find several recommendations of great channels to watch, and this video will be no exception within a few minutes after I'm done with it. What about you, Cody? You got anything you want to plug for this sumbitch right here?
Newest thing I got is Face of Dying 6. Ferguson movie right there. Not my favorite that I've done. I will say my Face of Dying 5 is much better, but still cool to have another one that I did. Dustin
Nobody uses skulls on their movie art quite like Dustin.
He owns them.
Yeah.
But I got that. I have a little small part in Camp Blood 666 Part 2. And then also upcoming Amityville Turkey Day, the sequel to Amityville Thanksgiving.
We're also going to be in a couple other Amityville films, right? Like Amityville Nail in the Coffin.
Yeah.
And Amityville Webcam. Yeah. So dream big, kids. You too can end up in an Amityville movie. Yeah. That's fucking our ticket to the A-list right there, man. We're going to be the Joe Rogan of fucking Schlockcasts. So look out, world. We're coming for you.
We're taking over.
For sure. As far as other stuff we have to plug, we definitely did do a discussion for Chris Seaver's Evil Night over on the Schlockaholics channel recently. This is actually simulcasting to both the Schlockaholics channel and Retro Cult Home Video, which I'll do the same thing over there that I do here. I'll leave it up on Schlockaholics for a couple of days, then delete it. And you want to watch it, you come over here to the channel that it's hosted on. But be sure, if you're not a subscriber to the Schlockaholics channel, to get over there and subscribe to us so you can keep apprised of all of our B-movie action. We're going to be doing a lot of these franchise discussions and full moon shit over here, but if you want the extra low budget dirt, you got to get over there to the fucking Schlockaholics channel. In addition to that, we've been joined regularly as of late by Dominic St. Clair on our Schlock Talk Monday show, where we talk all types of schlock and trash and shit and all the stuff. The stoink goes down over there. Chris Seaver was just involved with us over there in, I believe, our last episode, where we talked about all types of cool stuff. He showed off a really delicious Frighteners box set and we had a good old time. So, our next upcoming event over there is going to be obviously another Monday show on Monday, but next Saturday we're going to be discussing Carousel from 2017 or 13.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to it, man. It's going to be dope. And if you want to get in on that main episode, Dom, you're more than welcome. Just let us know. We'll send you a link.
On Tubi.
We do those Saturday, like the proper mainline discussions we do on Saturdays at like noon. So if you're available at that time, you can get in on it with us and discuss the film. That's been it, man. This is, been another episode of that motherfucking Full Moon Madness. I'm glad to be reviving this shit. This obviously is one of the main things that I've been known for apparently in the past few years, and I'm looking forward to keeping that going. It is a great, catalog of films to explore together, and I like to think I've done a pretty good job of highlighting that. If you guys want to check out any of my previous Full Moon coverage, you can check out my Full Moon Live playlist here on the Retro Cult Home Video channel, or just my playlist of numbered episodes where I've reviewed several of the films that we've talked about tonight. We're also going to be doing individual film discussions once we bang through those Full Moon franchises. So look forward to all types of awesome stuff on the live end of this over here as well. Cheers. Thanks for watching. Get the fuck out of here.